The Property Lane.
My name is Catherine Nantiza and I welcome all of you to The Property Lane. We will be talking everything and anything real estate. Talk about interior designing, talk about construction, talk about agency, talk about development, whatever it is you want to know about real estate, from the small things as tiles to doors to ceilings and anything that you want to do with a house. You know, the house is where we all dwell. How does it come about? What should it be? How should it look like? That and more is what you'll be learning on this show. And in today's episode, we are addressing the great housing imbalance. We have great minds that will be in a panel discussion. We have Engineer Kenneth Kaijuka, the CEO National Housing. We have Engineer Paul, the Building Control Officer from KCCA. We have Architect Shem Seboa from Uganda Society of Architects. And finally, we'll be having Vincent Agaba, the board member from Habitat for Humanity, Uganda. It's going to be an interesting discussion. I personally look forward to it, and I'll be moderating the talk. Join me as we delve into this discussion. And should you have any comments, questions, suggestions, write them down and send through our social media platforms, and we will get back to you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's clap our hands for Mr. Vincent Agaba as he takes us through what they are doing as Habitat for Humanity and their contribution towards reducing the housing deficit. Thank you, Vincent.
Today we celebrate that actually Area Uganda is able to associate with all big brands, and I think Habitat for Humanity is one of those that has existed in Uganda for 40 years. So allow me now to take you through just a few numbers. Please, Michael, if you can just help me on the screen. I'm representing the National Director of Habitat for Humanity and the board chair, and I sit on the board and also on the committee for fundraising. Who is Habitat for Humanity? An overview. We shall look at about Habitat for Humanity Uganda, the housing deficit, strategic focus areas, current programs. I think those will be run through quickly so that the other members can intervene. Now, Habitat for Humanity in Uganda, vision. Uganda where everyone has a decent place to live and thrive. That's our vision. The Uganda where everyone has a decent place. So members, when we are thinking about Habitat for Humanity in the mission and the vision, we are looking at the housing deficit. For more than 40 years, Habitat for Humanity has been providing shelter for vulnerable communities to build their strength, stability, and self-reliance. So Habitat for Humanity is not a commercial entity. It is an NGO, but with a footprint into housing. This 2.4 million housing deficit keeps ringing bells every conference and every workshop we go to. Some of us, we have heard it over and over, but it still exists. It is here. And about 210,000 units are in urban areas and about 1.395 million in rural areas, and about 900 housing units are below standard. Habitat for Humanity Uganda has contributed to this housing deficit through tailored programs and approaches. We look at a few things. One is habitability, basic services, affordability, and security of tenure. By habitability, we mean someone should have a decent place where to put a head and a roof on their head. Basic services, we think sanitation and water is critical. Affordability, it should be within pocket friendly. And also security of tenure, that people must have a title in their hands. And most often, that's what the challenge is. That we have a home, we are not sure of the other or the other. Now, Habitat for Humanity Uganda has built and improved over 40,000 houses, transforming the lives of our 1.5 million Ugandans over the period of 40 years. I think most of us, when we stand up and think about Habitat for Humanity, most of us will remember those villages, whereby these houses were with partnership with Stanbic Bank, with MTN, they were all over the country. And that has become about 40,000 of them in the country.
National Housing, to help us understand the topic. Mr. Kaijuka, Engineer Kaijuka Kenneth, what is the great housing imbalance?
As National Housing, we've been at the forefront of real estate for the last 59 years.
As a matter of fact, we are the oldest company in this country in infrastructure development. Whether you talk of all companies that have come here and have done work, whether in road works, whether in oil and gas, whether in housing, the only one sustainable company that has lived to date and continues to be sustainable is National Housing. And so we pride in that spectrum of period of time, and we look back to what we brought to this country, however insignificant it may be. That if you wanted to look around the country for all prime locations, and we do this with pride, where people will say, I want to go to Bugorobi, you'll find the footprint of National Housing that got it to be there. You say Kororo, it was all set up by National Housing. Nakasero, you go to Ntinda Minister's Village, you go to Naria, you go to now people who are heading towards Nigeria and that direction. You go to all Boma grounds in the municipalities and cities, the footprint of National Housing. At the time, in many years before, then there was that sense of drive to get the real estate set up, organized. But later in years, we realized that yes, this function was divested and it stopped being the mainstream function of government. It therefore became everybody's job. And that's why me and you, each one of us, we fend for ourselves to look for a plot, to look for the architect, to look for the engineer, to know where you'll build, to determine who your neighbor will be, and to know the size and type of housing that you desire to have. So this gives quite a fair appreciation of the historical journey to date, that we are now as a country in an auto-drive mode with respect to real estate. And so when we speak about the deficit, the imbalance of 2.4, this has been on our shelves for the last 10 years, and I don't know why it is not moving. When these colleagues of ours, the Mufadas and others, are bringing products to the market, Ugandans who are of age 0 to 4 years, these are baby breastfeeding children. If you go across, you see male and female, and you see a total of 7.5 million Ugandans. And those constitute 16.8%. These are children on their breasts, on their mother's breasts. Go down the range 5 to 9, I guess these are nursery and P1, P4. And those constitute 6.5 million Ugandans. Look at 10 to 14. These are children who are leaving primary 7, going to secondary school. There are 5.7 million Ugandans. 15 to 19, somebody is leaving S6, high school. They are about 5.3. 20 to 24, this is a graduate leaving university. Do we have graduates who have recently left university here? Hands up. Now those, they are not even here. They don't think real estate makes sense to them. But when you look at 25 to 26, 3.6 million. 30 to 34. Now 25 to 29, these are job seekers, or they are doing their second degree. In the current Ugandan scenario, 25 to 29, you may not get a job, so you struggle for an additional academic credential. But the 30 to 34 are the guys on the street looking for jobs. Now, if you look at that level, up to that scale, you add up from up to there, these are 36 million Ugandans. Out of 45, the total down is 45. 36 are in their father's homes. I want you to agree with me, because they are students. They are fed, they are hospitalized, they are sleeping in their homes, they eat, they are transported, they will photocopy on the father and the mother's pocket, look for the next job. And I want you to begin to look at, when we talk about the imbalance and the deficit, we position it from the statistics that are with us. I'm not in agreement with the 2.4 million housing deficit, because right from here, these numbers speak volumes. Now, when you take a bracket 35, and you want to assume those are the working class, up to about 50, those constitute about 2 million Ugandans. Now, these parents of 2 million are the ones supporting the 36 above, but also when you look down above 60, all the way up to 80 plus, another about 2 million, this same cluster of people are supporting their old fathers and grandfathers who are no longer able to work, above 60. My father is 78. I take care, and he was working. I do not know your fathers, if any one of you is taking care in that respect. Now, that is one scenario, that when we are looking at how we mitigate the issue of imbalance, we must begin to look at when these numbers get offloaded, become of age at 30, they marry, and then they begin to be dependent from their father's homes. There is critical need for that housing. And so the imbalance we should be addressing cannot be just simply holistic. It must be structured to look at who we target to serve and at what age. I think I should leave the rest to colleagues.
Thank you. I would love to hear from Uganda Society of Architects. And after that, we'll hear from the developers. But from the Uganda Society of Architects, how can we bring the cost down? I hear what Habitat was talking about. It sounds interesting, but we are selling more plots and few houses are coming up. You are aware the rate at which we are subdividing the land. It scares me as well, and we're creating more slums, by the way, but that's a policy issue. How do we build on our plots? Many of us have plots, but you know, the architects start by telling you, it is so simple. We can build here a house of 50 million. And when you get started, the 50 million is swallowed just at the foundation level. Before you know it, 100 is spent before you do the roofing. And by the time you're roofing, the house that was supposed to be 100 is now almost 200. So what happens? One, talk about alternative construction methods that can bring down that cost, but also the technology aspect in addressing the housing deficit. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. I think the earlier speakers have laid a good foundation for me. The engineer from National Housing, I think, threw out some statistics, and I wanted to also wrap a couple of statistics to complement on what he was presenting. I do appreciate that, yes, there is actually a housing imbalance, but sometimes when you have a hospital or an emergency room, when somebody comes and they've got a cut on their finger, as a doctor you decide, do I attend to the one with the cut finger or the person with the intestines falling out? And I think, in my mind, I would like you to put your head around these figures. The rate of urbanization of Uganda, according to the World Bank statistics, have been moving like this. I'm not going to go back to 1960, but I will start from 1990. 1990, urban population was 2 million shillings. 2 million Ugandans living in urban centers. In 2000, 10 years later, 3.5 million. 10 years later, 2010, 6.25 million. 2020, as we speak today, we have 11 million urban dwellers. You look at the graph, and it is literally exponential. And in my mind, if we are to start to talk about intervening in the housing matter, the first place that we need to discuss has to be the urban centers. According to UBOS, much as rural areas may have got an issue with housing, but it's not very alarming. By and large, our average owner-occupied housing percentage is about 89% in the urban areas. In places like Lango district, Lango sub-region, they even get up to 95%. We're not even talking about the quality yet. We're purely simply saying a roof over somebody's head. But when you look at the urban areas, rented occupancy is about 41%. And when you get to Kampala, which is the shooter, 67%. What does that mean? Is that these are people who, if they fail to pay, will not have a house tomorrow. So all these, again, I'm trying to put a frame to the fact that, yes, it is desirable to have some form of housing solution, but the tricky thing is that the urban centers are where the value of land is highest. So you cannot afford to spread out those units the way maybe some of the solutions that have been presented may work. Because at the end of the day, we have to look at the fact that the one thing that is finite in our country is land. Local authorities need to basically engage the physical planners to actually be involved in each and every subdivision. Because currently, the subdivisions are happening in the outskirts of Kampala now. What used to be farms close to town is now being cut up into estates. But who is controlling this? From what I know, it's mainly somebody sits on a computer somewhere, cuts up plots, in a few weeks, posts it on the newspapers, we have plots for sale.
Thank you so much, Architect. We will come back to you. You brought up an interesting debate. Before we call in KCCA to answer some of these planning issues. Let's first hear from Mufadel of Universal Properties. As a developer, since you started, how many units have you rolled out? How many projects? And why are you only in the city, or do you intend to go out of the city?
Hello everyone. Once again, my name is Mufaddal, as I had introduced earlier. We are doing affordable housing in Uganda since 2013 and completed more than 2,200 units.
Wow.
And 1,000 units under construction right now. We have been working on this number of affordable housing, and according to what we understand is a very affordable housing is a very subjective word. It's a very subjective word because for somebody a project in Kololo for like 300 million shillings will be affordable. Why? Because it is easier for him to move to town and he will save time. And somebody who is staying in Kajansi or Garuga for 35 million, 40 million will be affordable for him over there. Whereas we know that in different areas, we also have luxuries projects in like Mirembe Villas on Kajansi and Tibet Expressway, which are quite expensive, like $300,000, $400,000, right? So when we are addressing this statistics, which Kenneth has very, very profoundly presented to us, is that we need to also look at the subjective word of affordability.
My question to KCCA is, one, what has been done to address the housing imbalance? Are you giving incentives? Like, what are you doing to help those who want to build more houses, put up more commercial buildings, do so with ease? What is KCCA doing to address the housing imbalance?
You'll agree, all of us, that planning, physical planning in our country for a long time has always been an invisible deliverable. So it has not been given attention or priority. And therefore you find that it always attracts a small budget. Even most of us, when we're discussing the budget, you hardly hear anyone discussing the budget, how much has gone to planning. We're always looking how much has gone to agriculture, how much has gone to the road sector. So most of us want to see a road being tarmacked, or maybe tractors being delivered at the sub-county for our farmers to plow. But we don't appreciate planning. And then in the end, you find that the road you've built cannot actually serve you. For the last about 5 to 8 years, Colorado has been changing to high-rise buildings. We've been allowing, as the city authority, a transformation from the single family residential land use to either multi-level family land use or commercial space. But then you appreciate that change of land use, we have not been able to match it with infrastructure support. So you get a good number of roads in Kololo, which you can hardly drive 2 cars by passing comfortably. But then we've brought in so many people. So it's a national problem. And then in the end, you find that you always have planning following development. We passed and implemented additional, I think, about 8 cities about 3-4 years ago. When we were holding the engineers conference at Africana, the chairman of ERB, that time, his concern was that at the creation of these cities, engineers were never brought on board to plan sewage systems, to plan transport systems. UBC is here, and I hope they will not repeat that newscast, because the following morning, I think it was Monitor that published new cities are slums engineers. You see, eh? So I think the whole message was killed. And that's why we need support from all of us. If the media can support, everyone can come and then support, highlight the need for planning in all these towns and cities.
Thank you, moderator. The panelists, yeah, you've done a great job. And you imparted a lot of information to us. I have one very big question. Everywhere we've been, in all the conferences we've attended, everyone is concerned about the imbalances in housing, low-cost housing, and affordable housing. How can we mobilize to get this come to the highest forum where we can discuss this for the future of this country, because it's a very, very crucial issue.
Thank you so much, VP. Just to inform you, it's the reason we are partnering with UBC TV. It's one avenue of getting the whole country to listen. It's a start, but I'm sure KCCA and National Housing might have a better answer since they are closer to leadership. So they will answer that. Another question?
The issue is physical planning. As observed, physical planning should come first. But as stated already, physical planning has been given the back seat. And that is a false start we have in this country. I went to school in Nairobi University, but in Kenya, there is nothing you do before you go through the hands of a physical planner. You must get planning permission before you do anything, whether it is in agriculture, in a rural area, or in an urban area. But here in Uganda, physical planning is nothing. The person known here is an architect, because he makes the details of the building. But the framework is supposed to be done by the physical planner. And we've talked about subdivision of land. As long as we are so pertinent about owning land, I own a piece of land, doesn't matter what size it is, then we're having a very big problem.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Well, in summary, we need to plan our country better. We need the government to pay close attention to enforcement, and we need to be talking to the right people have a discussion with the developers, the ministers in charge, like the Minister for Water, for Finance, for Lands, Housing and Urban Development, bring them into the same house and on the same table with National Water, Umeme, and the developers, the agents, the architects, the engineers, the surveyors, the lawyers, so that we have conclusive and solid solutions to the great housing imbalance. I hope you enjoyed your time with us. See you next time.